Do GCSE mocks matter? I remember back when I was in year 10, I was chatting to some people in year 11. They were explaining to me why the January mocks don't really matter and that most of the cohort is not gonna study for them. And instead, they're gonna study for the actual exam. Now, this was in 2020. And guess what happened in the March of 2020? Lockdown. All of a sudden, a whole cohort worldwide was told that they're not actually going to sit a proper external exam and that their previous tests, including unit tests and mocks, will be taken into consideration instead. For that whole cohort, their mocks went from just being some practice exams to what their future depends on. Now, putting in a lot of effort for your mocks just in case there's another pandemic is quite an extreme reason. And so the question of do mocks really matter is asked pretty much every year. Even to this day in year 13, we're still debating whether the mocks that we're going to have in January really matter. Now, the answer is yes, but not really. Is it possible to pretty much fail all of your mocks because you didn't study, then go on to get all 9s? Yeah, for sure it is, but it says something about you as a student. If you've watched a couple of my videos before, you know that I preach consistency, even if it's a very small amount. The person that studies 30 minutes a day, pretty much from the beginning of the academic year till the exams, is almost always going to beat the person that starts studying a month before the exams. You need to understand that at the end of year 11, you're probably going to sit the first ever external exams you've done. It's likely going to be the first time you've sat in an exam hall before under a time constraint, doing questions you've never seen before out of a paper that's probably going to determine your grades. So, use mocks as a taster. The more you can recreate the exam conditions, the easier you'll find the proper exam. And mocks are the perfect time to recreate these conditions because you need to balance studying multiple subjects at a time. If you have the discipline to study for your mocks and even the unit tests, it's going to translate into the discipline needed to do well in your actual exams. And the only way to know if you have that discipline when it comes to studying is to test yourself. Test yourself by studying for the mocks. A lot of people think that when the exam season comes, they're going to just tap into an infinite source of motivation. But in reality, you're only as disciplined as you've trained yourself to be. So, if you want to make the exam season pretty much hell, then by all means, ignore the mocks and just study for the final exam. Even if you do well, you're going to burn yourself out and you're going to start resenting school. My advice, use the mocks to make as many mistakes as possible. The more mistakes you can make in the mock, the less likely you are to make those mistakes again in the actual exam when it matters. It's the perfect time to iron out any creases in your knowledge, because these mistakes can be the difference between a 6 and a 7 or an 8 and a 9. Another reason to study for mocks is for spaced repetition. Now, this concept is very widely spoken about on YouTube, and I'm not really the best person to explain this, so I would recommend watching a video about it. But basically, learn something consistently every couple of weeks and you'll pretty much memorize it. And we could use mocks to employ spaced repetition. If you learn a topic in class and then forget it and then only relearn it before the exam, you're not going to understand the topic compared to if you had learned it in class, then relearned it for mocks, and then relearned it one more time before the exam. Now, that being said, don't overestimate how important mocks actually are. Just because you have mocks coming up doesn't give you an excuse to skip the gym or stop going out with your friends or any other hobbies that you might have. My lifestyle when I'm living normally compared to when I have an exam season coming up is pretty much the same. I don't sacrifice any of the activities that fulfill me. I still go to the gym, I still go out with my friends, I go on walks, all that stuff. And that's ultimately what gets me good grades, because when I study, I'm motivated, so I enjoy it.